If you've ever hunted for a shiny Pokémon, you'll probably know that your chance to find one is 1 in 8,192 until Generation 6, and 1 in 4,096 in every generation after that. You'll also know that you can boost these odds with a shiny charm, which has been available since Black and White too. But not all Pokémon are as easy to find as each other, and there are many different ways of encountering Pokémon. A Feebas with a 1% encounter rate would have expected odds of 1 in 136,500 with a shiny charm in the newest games. And this got me thinking, what is the hardest shiny hunt in each generation of Pokémon? Shiny Pokémon were introduced in Generation 2, and anyone who's played Gold, Silver or Crystal will probably be familiar with the iconic shiny red Gyarados at the Lake of Rage. But did you know you can actually catch shiny Pokémon in Generation 1? This is because in Generation 2, shiny Pokémon are determined by something called DVs, or determinant values. These DVs are the precursors to IVs in the later games and can have a value of 0 to 15. When you have a specific spread of DVs, you have a shiny Pokémon, and in fact, this is what gives us the 1 in 8,192 shiny rate for these games. But how does that help us catch a shiny Pokémon in Generation 1? Once you know a Pokémon's DV stats at a given level, you can start hunting for it, and when you trade it across the Gold, Silver or Crystal, you'll have yourself a shiny Pokémon that you caught in Generation 1. Now, shiny hunting a Pokémon before shiny Pokémon exist is cool, but what about shiny hunting a Pokémon that doesn't even exist yet? Generation 1's Pokédex consists of 151 Pokémon, but there were originally 190 planned to be in the game. Even though some of these were removed later in development, they were still assigned index values in the game's code. The infamous missing no happens when one of these index values is generated. After executing an intricate series of instructions to manipulate your save file, receiving your missing no from an NPC on Cinnabar Island, and rewriting its typing to match the target of your hunt, you can finally trade it across to Gen 2 and you'll have your impossible shiny Pokémon. If you want to know more about this shiny hunt, I recommend checking out the playlist in the description, which goes into a lot more detail. Generation 2's bug catching contest introduced a competition in which you tried to catch the best bug for bragging rights. And what bug could be better than a shiny one, right? Well, if you agree with me, you'd better get a move on because you've only got 20 minutes. Ran out of time, now you've got to wait until Thursday to try again because there's only 3 days a week you can enter the contest. And even if you find that elusive shiny bug Pokemon, you only have 20 Park Balls to secure the catch. When the stars align and you finally get to hand in a shiny submission to the contest judge, you can sit back and accept your prize. 3rd place? Turns out, if you dealt too much damage or caught a Pokemon with low max hit points, Bugcatcher Benny's Butterfree might steal away your spotlight. And that's what makes catching a shiny contest-winning bug so difficult. Here's a fun fact about me. Did you know that in Generation 3 I caught more shiny Pokemon than Feebas? That's because Feebas can only be found on 6 of the hundreds of fishing tiles on Route 119, and even then, it's not the only Pokemon you can find on the tile, something I did not know as a kid. When you find a Feebas tile, you can begin your shiny hunt with 1 in 8,192 odds, and you'll be able to complete one of the hardest shiny hunts in Generation 3. Except, you might not. You see, where Feebas is hard to find, it can be even harder to evolve it. Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire introduced 5 new different aspects for Pokémon so they could compete in contests. Smartness, cuteness, coolness, beauty, and toughness. And for Feebas, the one we're interested in is beauty. In order to evolve your newly caught Feebas into Milotic, you have to max out its beauty stat. This is done by feeding it blue or indigo Pokéblocks. Make sure they're good quality though, because here's what makes Milotic so hard to attain. If you feed your Feebas 12 Pokéblocks and you fail to max the stat, that's it, finished. Feebas is done munching and you're gonna have to go back to square 1, or 50, or whatever square you found the Feebas on in the first place. A lot of shiny hunting for most people takes place after beating the game. This is because in Generation 5, Pokémon Black and White 2 introduced the shiny charm, making shiny Pokémon more likely to appear. But a fun fact about Generation 4 is that for one specific Pokémon, you have to beat a completely different game to shiny hunt it. In the mid-2000s, the Nintendo DS saw the release of Pokémon Ranger, a game unlike any Pokémon game before it. Set in the Fior region, the player temporarily catches Pokémon by drawing circles around them on the DS touchscreen. Once you've completed Pokémon Ranger, Once per cartridge, you can receive an egg for the mythical Pokemon Manaphy. This egg can't be obtained again even if you start a new save file. Once you've traded the egg across to your Gen 4 game and you hatch it, you have a chance at getting a shiny Manaphy, but if not, I guess go buy a new copy of Pokemon Ranger. Well, not quite. You only get one chance per save file, but if you go back before you hatch the egg and trade it to a new save file, you get another go. The most effective way to do this is to be lucky enough to gather 4 different Manaphy eggs. That way you can keep trading them between your 2 different Gen 4 games until you get the shiny Manaphy. The thing about that though is that every reset of the game takes around 25 to 30 minutes for 5 attempts at the elusive seafaring Pokemon. This is because you have to play far enough into the game to be able to trade the eggs each time you reset, and catch enough Pokemon to be able to trade too. If you hunted for 6 hours a day, it would take you 136 days to reach full odds. And if you only had 2 hours a day, it would take you a whole year. And even then, you're not guaranteed to find the shiny. This level of time investment makes Manaphy one of the hardest shiny hunts you can do in Generation 4. Not to mention that there's a finite number of potential shiny Manaphy. Pokemon Ranger sold 2.7 million copies, which sounds like a lot, but who knows how many of those Manaphy eggs have already been hatched or lost to time. In all generations of Pokemon, you're introduced to the world by the generation's professor, and Black and White 2 are no different. At least that's how it looks. The Pokemon that Professor Juniper shows you at the introduction of the Gen 5 games is actually very different. This is because instead of being a static sprite that is displayed the same every time like in prior games, the Minccino and Cinccino that you see are actually generated the same way a wild encounter is. That means there's a 1 in 8,192 chance that Juniper introduces your Gen 5 experience with a casual flex. But why is this a hard hunt though? It's only the same shiny odds as normal. Well, first of all, you might have never seen these Pokemon before. Generation 5's Pokédex consisted of entirely new Pokemon before the post-game, so if that's the first time you've seen that Pokemon, you might not even know it's shiny. Second of all, if you click past it, it's gone forever. Imagine how hard it would be to convince your friends this happened when it's never been possible before. And finally, it's hard because you can't catch it. This could have been somebody's first ever shiny Pokemon and it's uncatchable, and if you ask me, that's a hard fact to face. Pokemon X and Y introduced many new mechanics, ranging from rollerblading to Mega Evolutions. Please bring them back, Nintendo. And among these mechanics were Horde encounters. Horde encounters allow the player to encounter 5 Pokemon at the same time, each with the newly increased shiny odds for Gen 6 of 1 in 4,096. This gives you a roughly 1 in 819 chance of finding a shiny in a Horde without even having a shiny charm. What makes Hordes interesting for this video though is the fact that you can find more than 1 shiny per Horde. The odds of every Pokemon in a Horde being shiny, even with a shiny charm, is 1 in 4,738,744,100,000,000. To put this into perspective, the odds of winning the lottery in the UK is roughly 1 in 45 million. You wouldn't even be able to take all 5 shinies home with you because the game will only let you catch 1 Pokemon per Horde. Not only is this hunt hard, but with the odds it's practically impossible. Here's a clip of my friend getting 2 shiny Pokemon in 1 Horde just to show that it's possible.
Wait! Was that 2 sparkles in there? There is!
Generation 7 sees the player exploring the Alola region, which is made up of 4 main islands, and the shiny hunt we're interested in takes place on the first. A new mechanic that was introduced with Sun and Moon was SOS encounters, where a wild Pokemon can call for help and turn a 1 vs 1 into a 2 vs 1. Pokemon can call in Pokemon different to themselves and even fully evolved versions of themselves, and this is what leads to our hunt. On Route 3, before you even have to leave the first island, there is a patch of grass that contains Bagon. And in that grass, there is only a 1% chance that Bagon shows up. When Bagon calls for help, it has a 99% chance to be answered by another Bagon. But if you're lucky, it also has a 1% chance to be answered by a Salamence. At level 10, that's 40 levels earlier than it should evolve. The fact that this Salamence can be shiny means you can catch an under-leveled shiny Salamence, which is something you can't do in any other game. But the odds of that are insane. If you do this hunt before leaving the first island, there's a 1 in 100 chance to find Bagon, with a 1 in 100 chance to call in a Salamence, with a 1 in 4,096 chance to be shiny. That's overall odds of 1 in 40,960,000. This isn't the only cool fully evolved Pokemon to hunt in this generation, but doing it this early makes it definitely the hardest. Pokemon Sword and Shield has a lot of entries that could make it onto this list. The Feebas that was mentioned in the intro, a Dynamax adventure with 4 shiny Pokemon to choose from, or even a shiny authentic Sinistea. But this next hunt is just spicier. Literally. In Generation 8 you can go much further than just shiny hunting, you can become a chef. Bear with me on this. Every time that you set up camp with your Pokemon, you have the option to make a curry. And once you've made the curry, there's a chance that a Pokemon with the mark Curry Connoisseur will show up and join your team. And the Pokemon that shows up can be shiny. In order for this to happen, you need to ensure that you have Pokeballs, you have to be best friends with all your Pokemon, and they have to be best friends with each other. You have to make a really good curry with high quality ingredients, and you have to make sure that you've set up at the right location. Even if you do everything right, a Charizard rank curry will still only spawn a Pokemon roughly 1 in every 4 curries, and other classes even less. But if you stick to it, you might end up with a shiny with one of the most unusual methods in any Pokemon game so far. And that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, drop a like, and let me know in the comments, because there's a lot more interesting shiny hunts I found out about whilst making this video, so maybe we can make a part 2. And a huge thanks to the people on the screen, as the video wouldn't have been possible without them. You can find their links in the description. See you next time!